Go ahead. Woo! Fantasy football, baby. Welcome back to another episode, J&J Talk Sports Podcast. We are doing a special episode tonight for a fantasy football special. As you guys all know, it is the fantasy football week. Everyone's doing their drafts, whether you waited till right after the third game of the preseason or you're waiting to the fourth game of the preseason, or maybe you're waiting until Wednesday, right before the first game of the NFL season. Listen, we don't judge here. We're just excited to be talking some fantasy football. Make sure you guys follow our podcast on Instagram and Twitter at J&J Talk Sports. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment on iTunes Podcast, SoundCloud, and Google Play. You can also email us at jnjtalksports@gmail.com with any questions, concerns, comments, or future topics you would like for us to discuss. I am your host, Justin, quote-unquote Skywalker Palizzi. You can follow me on Twitter at EasyPalizzi_21. That's easy, POLIZZI_21. I am super stoked for tonight's episode. Joining me this week, like every other week, one of my two overly large size co-hosts, Lyle. How's it going, buddy?
What up, everyone? It's your boy, Lyle Style. You can follow me on Twitter at Lyles Style, LYLESSTYLE. Yes, that's two S's in the middle. Justin is super excited to talk fantasy football. As he said, make sure you follow our Instagram and Twitter at J&J Talk Sports. We gave away free tickets, Yankee tickets yesterday.
Yes,
so
we
it's
did.
super important to follow our social media. Very important because you could win free stuff. I'm also super excited to talk some fantasy football because I'm here to make only hot takes about Josh Gordon because Josh Gordon is fantasy football. And as he said, bless him, absolutely. There are two overly large size co-hosts here. One of them coming all the way from Greece. Nick, how you doing tonight?
What's up, guys? How you doing? I'm glad I was able to get on this fantasy football episode. Like we mentioned, this is our first international episode. Man, I'm a little excited. It's our first fantasy episode. I'm sure we're going to be doing hopefully one a week as the season goes on.
For sure.
Yeah, man, it's the greatest time of the year. Fantasy football is probably the most exciting thing people do on a yearly basis. And I'm just excited to finally get something going.
Yeah.
And on that... Go ahead.
So just to butt in right there real quick, Nick, I apologize. So we are this tonight's fantasy football special. This upcoming Monday, September 3rd, we are recording our very special NFL preview in which we give you division winners, playoff winners, Super Bowl contenders. We're going to give you our MVPs, our defensive player of the years, our offensive player of the years. And we're also going to have a special guest on that episode, our very own Lee, who works for the Bleacher Report. Definitely hope that he could get us on that episode. He has co-hosted for us before. But speaking of co-hosting, now we're talking fantasy football today. And this gentleman I'm going to introduce here is not only a friend of mine that I met virtually on Twitter, when we were writing for Nate Hamilton, and we still do as contributing writers. But I've been podcasting with him since January. If there's a guy who can say everything I believe in fantasy, is this guy, because we've been talking fantasy sports every week for the past 7 months, and it's no other. And I'm proud to introduce him. I just want to say thank you for coming on to the show, Matt. How's it going, man?
It's going good. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's awesome to be able to talk some fantasy football with some guys across the country from me.
Well, actually, we're going to be talking about the Champions League draw, not fantasy football. This was all a huge smoke screen. I swipe you.
Oh, yeah. I am totally out of my element.
The words Matt and soccer don't go in the same sentence, but the words Matt and Patriots go in the same sentence. So, Matt, how do you feel to be on a podcast right now with two diehard Jets fans who swear from the moon and back that Tom Brady is going to be a bust this year?
Well, I didn't know that last part, but I feel pretty good.
I was also unaware of that last part, but now I believe it wholeheartedly.
I feel good about it. We can't all be right, and the Jets. I mean, what can you say for anything that they've really done?
Can you just do me a favor? Can you just thank me and Nick for giving you Tom Brady? If it wasn't for Mo Lewis, you would have nothing.
And Bill Belichick.
Hey,
we would like to thank you.
I appreciate that, and I also want to thank you guys for Mark Sanchez.
Hey Matt, how about you give our listeners your Twitter handle and tell us about some of the projects you've been working on, especially on the podcast that you recorded last night.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Kegler Matt, and that's KOEGLER Matt. And like Justin was saying, I'm still contributing to DominateFantasy.com, writing there every week. And I was on a guest spot doing just a local podcast here, doing some fantasy special just as I am tonight, and I'm all warmed up.
Awesome, man. And I'm very excited to have you on, Matt, and I can't wait to dive in here. And you know what? Let's get into our first topic then, right? So listen, we're going to give you guys breakout players. We're going to give you studs. We're going to give you duds at their ADPs. We're going to give you rookie breakouts. We're going to give you sleeper picks. We're going to give you bold predictions. But let's start off with the breakout player. A breakout player, right? It's a player who hasn't been hyped up, but hasn't been forgotten and slept on. It's basically a player who's poised to have a big fantasy breakout year. Matt, I love this guy that you're about to say. Please introduce us into your breakout player for Fantasy Football 2018.
So my breakout this year is Kenny Stills of the Miami Dolphins. And last year he finished as the wide receiver 28 on a bottom of the barrel offense. I mean, you got to feel good finishing top 30 with Jay Cutler throwing you the ball.
Oh, yeah, smoking Jay Cutler.
And, he played the most snaps on that Miami Dolphins team last year. He's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 45, which is pretty much free for wide receiver 1 upside.
Mm-hmm.
He averaged 7 targets a game last year, and after the mid-season mark, he only had less than 5 targets once, and obviously trailing Jarvis Landry in there. I have him going for about 70 catches and hitting that 1,000-yard mark this year.
Awesome. I love that. And I'm going to agree with you right there on Stills before I let the other two guys get up in here. He's going behind guys like Mike Williams, Dez, DJ Moore, Ridley, and the most surprising of them all, his counterpart, Devontae Parker. Why is Devontae Parker getting drafted ahead of Kenny Stills? I don't know why. But when I look at
people
Stills,
love Devontae Parker. They just
for
love
some
him for
reason.
no
For
reason.
some reason.
It's unjustified.
This is the year that Devontae Parker falls off the face of the earth. But nonetheless, I think of the 2016 season when I think of Stills, right? I think he has that kind of upside in which he finished as the wide receiver 46, which was wide receiver 4 range, but he only finished with 42 receptions, but was able to turn those 42 receptions into 9 touchdowns at a 17.3 yards per reception. I expect him, like you said, Matt, closer to that 70 range. And yeah, he's not going to average 70 yards per reception, but even if he's not far off from that, he's going to be looking at wide receiver 3 numbers at the worst. And that's not considering what he's going to get from the touchdown range. So we're going to move on here. And Lyle, why are you doing this to me, man?
All right. So I think my breakout player for this year is going to be the Crimson Tide Dynamo, the individual who could not be taken down by less than 3 people back in college. NFL is a little bit different, of course. Derrick Henry. Currently, he's being drafted around a running back 19. But here's why I think Derrick Henry's poised for a very big year. He is the guy on first and second down. He's going to get his touches. That's 1. 2, he's an animal. He's huge. He's just a physically imposing individual. But I think the most important thing you have to look at is the fact that the Tennessee Titans have brought in a new offense coordinator in Matt LaFleur. Yes, he's a Sean McVay guy. It's going to be, they're going to distribute the ball. But Mariota struggled last year. The Titans are going to need a solid run game to, A, build up Mariota's confidence and give him that time in the pocket to execute Matt LaFleur's game plan. they're going to be especially in the beginning of the season, the Titans are going to be very, very run heavy, or you're going to see a lot of screens, which the one risk in Derrick Henry is if they do a lot of screen plays to Deion Lewis, a lot of those bubble screens to get Mariota comfortable. But I think Derrick Henry is going to see an even bigger workload than last year. And I think he's going to have a great season. This Titans team, their offensive line's pretty solid. And I think he's in for a very, very good year. I do think he is very underrated at 19th, number 19 running back. I think we're gonna have some fun this year with him.
So, as much as I disagree with you on that Tennessee Titans player, I'll get into that later because I so much are down for this next Tennessee player that Nick's about to mention.
All right, I'm gonna be honest. I was debating on a lot of players here, but as I was scrolling through the rankings, this one kind of just shot out at me. Looking at Marcus Mariota, and I love how we're just loving this Tennessee Titans team. Marcus Mariota is ranked, I think, the 19th quarterback from when I'm looking at this rankings poll right here, 133 overall, and he's being ranked behind quarterbacks that are kind of confusing to me. Alex Smith, Dak Prescott, I would even say Patrick Mahomes, et cetera, et cetera. Now, when you look at Marcus Mariota and the team he has around him, they just brought in Deion Lewis, as Lyle said, who is a tremendous threat out the backfield to catch the ball. Corey Davis is poised for a huge year. As we all know, as this preseason has been going on, his stock has been soaring. We all know and love Delaney Walker. Huge consistency in the tight end position. Always a go-to guy
on that team.
He is the best receiver on that team. That's not like it's an insult. He's a tremendous athlete and a tremendous receiver. Rashard Matthews is also a pretty underrated receiver in my opinion. And also, this is a fantasy podcast. The fact that he's able to take off on a whim and just run for a first down or even run for a touchdown. I think he had like a 70-yard touchdown last year or whatever it might have been. The fact that he's a dual threat quarterback, I like the weapons around him, a pretty decent offensive line. I think at the value that he is, because we're talking about a breakout player, which I define as a player who's going to play above or well above his ADP rank. I think Marcus Mariota is a tremendous value, especially where he's ranked at QB 19, 133rd overall. You don't have to jump on. I'm not insulting anybody who does. Obviously, if you want to get like that Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, you want to go top 5, 6 round, go out and get a quarterback. That's never been my style. I like to wait and get value at quarterback later on in the draft. And as far as value in quarterbacks and fantasy football, Marcus Mariota is looking to have tremendous value this year. And I think he can be a quarterback that can propel you to the playoffs and beyond.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that because like Mariota going at the QB 19 is ridiculous to me. Like,
yeah,
he's a year removed away from people predicting him to fall into the top 12 last year, and yet he had a bad year last year. The only concern with Mariota right now is that he's having accuracy issues in the preseason. He hasn't connected with Corey Davis at all, and Rashard Matthews has to play the snap. So it's a little bit concerning in that sense. But when you look at the quarterback,
he doesn't have a receiver. He has Delaney Walker and he has Deion Lewis. Corey
Davis is his second year, and Rashard Matthews is up and coming. But nonetheless, quarterback 19, Marcus Mariota, for a guy who uses his legs just as much as anybody else on this list, except for maybe Cam Newton, who actually has runs designed for him. Alex Smith is the quarterback 18, Dak Prescott, quarterback 17. I'm sorry, I'll take Mariota over both those guys. Now, I actually just finished a draft with Lyle 2 nights ago in which I took Marcus Mariota as my third quarterback. I had Wentz, I have Kirk Cousins, and I had Mariota as my third quarterback, and I love that. I mean, a 10-man league, 2 quarterback league, that's amazing.
Going. That just goes to show how
exactly. And in that league, also, Derek Carr was actually taken ahead of Mariota, who Derek Carr is ranked 20. So I love that Mariota tick right there. Absolutely behind you with that one on Nick, with that one, Nick. But I want to get into a stud player here. So basically, listen, Le'Veon Bell is going to be a stud next year, right? OBJ is going to be a stud next year. Saquon Barkley is going to be a stud next year. You know what? I'll show you Jets and Patriots fans some love. Tom Brady is going to be a stud next year. Bilal Powell is going to be a stud next year. But why is Bilal Powell going to be a stud next year? Because of his ADP, where you're getting him. You're getting him in the double-digit rounds, a guy who's going to perform where he's getting drafted at. And that's where I want to hear. I want to hear a stud player in which what their ADP is, where you're drafting them, they're going to be a stud at that position. So based off their current ADP and their ranking, Lyle, I want to hear a stud for this year's 2018 fantasy football year.
I'm going to have to go with a receiver on this one. His name is T.Y. Hilton.
Love it.
T.Y. Hilton's currently the 10th wide receiver in most rankings. He was the 10th best – oh, no, wide receiver 11 most rankings. He was the 10th best receiver last year, being thrown to by Jacoby Brissett and whatever other, amalgamation they threw behind that quarterback. Yeah, again, just random individuals. T.Y.'s got Andrew Luck back. And Andrew Luck looks solid in preseason. He's actually going to get the ball where he wants it to get yards after the catch. He's going to get it on those slant. He's going to get his plays back. I do see an uptick in production from T.Y. Hilton. I do think he has top 5, maybe even, and I know I might be going on a limb, maybe even top 3 potential this year because people are going to be sleeping on him because of his production last year. Because what if Andrew Luck doesn't stay healthy? Because I think his ability to break out is based on Andrew Luck's health, but the Colts have upgraded that line, and Andrew Luck still has that accuracy. T.Y. Hilton is going to be your stud for this year, sir.
Yeah, I love that. I actually have T.Y. Hilton ranked in my top 12 as a wide receiver, and I think he gets back to that wide receiver range with Luck fully healthy. Nick, what about you? Give me a stud at their current ADP and ranking.
Again, I was going through a couple plays in this spot, but somebody I really like at their ADP is Joe Mixon. He's somebody that you can say is going to be a high running back 2 and has potential to be low running back 1. Again, last year, nothing flashy. He had a pretty disappointing season. The Bengals' offensive line was pretty atrocious, but the Bengals did a couple things on this offseason to address the offensive line. One thing major was they drafted Billy Price out of Ohio State at center, which the center spot was something that was getting blown up by nose tackles day in and day out. He is a back that can be a 3-down back. He can catch the ball out the backfield. And it seems as though this year he will be the bell cow for the Bengals. And again, there's going to be Giovanni Bernard behind him, but I still think that the talent is there from Joe Mixon. And if you give this kid 25-plus touches a game, which only happened once last year, and in that game he put up about 165 yards and a touchdown, I think it was, I believe that this kid can be a real threat in the NFL and in fantasy.
Right.
And just he trimmed down 15 pounds. He's a lot quicker now.
Yeah.
Better.
That was going to be
all that good
that
stuff.
Was going to be one of the 2 things I mentioned.
One more quick thing. They just added offensive line coach Frank Pollock from the Cowboys. So, and we all know how the Cowboys offensive line has been these last couple of years. Just want to throw that in there. Take it away.
Love it. I actually love Mixon on that 2-3 turn. Like if you're in the back end of the second round or the beginning of the third round, that's a great pick right there. Like in most leagues, if I had the 4th or 5th pick, I'm begging for Mixon to come back to me with that 3rd pick. So I could go running back, receiver, and then running back again. But I do love Joe Mixon. And like you said, Nick, he did drop the weight, which was one thing I was going to mention. The second thing I was going to mention, and we all know they improved the offensive line. They traded with the Bills to get an offensive lineman. They drafted an offensive lineman. We know that. It was this preseason. He ran 2 plays out of the outside wide receiver formation. He ran. There was one play where he ran like a slant. He caught the ball and ran like 20 yards down the field. Those are the kind of plays I expect them to get Mixon involved. And I know Giovanni Bernard is there as his backup, and he's going to play a lot of the catching down, downs. But as many carries as we expect Mixon to get, I expect him to get a lot of volume from that wide receiver position and get a lot of catches. Now, Matt, I know we skipped you here. I know we had you second on this lineup. I have ifs and buts about the guy you're going to talk about, but I wanted to ask you a question. Now, Lyle's stud at their ADP was T.Y. Hilton, right? And T.Y. Hilton is currently the wide receiver 12 based off of consensus ADP. Right in between him, right? At 11, you have Stephon Diggs, and at 13, you have Thielen. Let's say you're at the ending of the second round, or the beginning of the third round, and you have between those three receivers to take in the PPR format. Who you throwing your dart at, Matt?
Not Hilton.
Ooh.
Give
interesting.
me give me either one of the Vikings ones. Probably Diggs. I was really high on Thielen early on in the off season, but just watching what is already developing between Cousins and Diggs has to get the swing. Like Thielen also just hurt his foot or his leg. We're not sure how serious that is. And actually, I just drafted him today because somebody stacked Diggs right in front of me. But yeah, Diggs and Thielen. I just think that Minnesota offense is going to be running a little bit higher. And you guys were talking kind of about the upgraded offensive line there, and I'll believe it when I see it, because I mean, even Kristen Michael and or was it Turbin, whichever one. And Jordan Wilkins were both getting met 2 yards in the backfield already. So I'll believe it when that starts to kind of roll. But even though I do have love for some Colts here today, but yeah, I would not be grabbing Hilton in that spot.
And the reason why I asked you that is because Lyle Nick, if you guys don't know, Matt has this love crush on these Vikings receivers. He just wants to get his hands on one.
Well, I mean, we all do. We all got that love crush for them.
Well, the Diggs part over Hilton, 100%. I agree with that. But if it's between Hilton or Thielen, give me Hilton 100%, because I do think Thielen is going to be second fiddle at the end of the day, and I want the wide receiver one on the team. The Diggs part, 100% agree. But Matt, why don't you go ahead here and give us your ADP stud?
My ADP stud is going maybe a few picks lower than he should be. He's currently the 20th running back off the board, and it's Lamar Miller. Just with the Foreman news coming out that he's guaranteed to miss half the season, and Bill O'Brien himself coming out saying he's a 3-down back. He averaged 15.4 points per game with Watson under center last year, and that put him. He finished as the running back 14 in PPR. He is the perfect running back 2. Right. You couldn't ask for somebody better. And just looking at the guys who are kind of going in front of him, people and Mixon, like you said, he has a lot of upside. McKinnon, who is kind of unproven going into a new offense. Royce Freeman, who is still going in front of him, who is already been announced as the second string, which that won't last long anyways. I just like Lamar Miller ahead of a lot of these guys going right around him, especially Derrick Henry.
Oh, absolutely over Derrick Henry. There's no question about that.
Well, Derrick Henry's going right behind him.
Yeah, and I would still take Lamar Miller. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Lamar Miller going to next year. I don't think he's going to be a buzz. I don't think he's going to be a stud. He's just one of those players in which you're trying to avoid, for me at least. But with that said, so we talked about some studs that at their current ADP we're calling them studs, right? So what are some players at their current ADP if we're going to call them a bust? Nick, you want to take it from here?
All right. So a player that I feel like is not going to live up to the hype or potential that he is, and I know maybe Matt might feel a little salty about this one. Granted that he was on the team last year, although I do love Brandon Cooks. I just don't see where we get the value that he is. Drafted? He was drafted. Hold on, let me pull this up. Well, I see him. He gets drafted in the 5th round. He was on a team last year with arguably the best quarterback that ever lived, where he was seeing. This is the truth. He was seeing a target volume of, I think it was about 110 to 115 targets. He only reeled in about 65. He's, in my opinion, a boom or bust receiver. And to be honest, that team is just stacked. If you look at the whole roster on the offense, you have Cooper Kupp, Todd Gurley, Robert Woods. I just don't see where we can get Brandon Cooks so high and still seem like he would have that kind of value. There were 5 games last year that he was outside of the top 50 wide receiver range. And to be honest, nobody expected Brandon Cooks to have the kind of season he did last year. Granted, Julian Edelman went down. Brandon Cooks practically the number 1 receiver there. Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But he's going to obviously shed more light on that. But I just don't see Brandon Cooks at the value he is. I think there are a lot of other receivers that are going to have are poised for a better year. If you guys have anything you want to throw on there, feel free to take the floor.
What about you, Matt? You have a player at that current ADP that you think is going to be a bust?
Mark Ingram. And I know that he had such a good year last year, but going at the end of the 4th and being suspended 4 games, I don't see how he's going to live up to that. And that could just be because people are either forgetting the suspension or just thinking that they're going to get a repeat of last year. He's not going to even finish near the RB6 where he was last year. There's too many other options around him that would make too much more sense that you're going to get 16 games out of. You prefer people like Ajayi, Lynch. I'd even take Carlos Hyde and Deion Lewis over him. And some math I was doing is he had 230 carries last season. That it totaled about 14 per game. If you minus the amount of carries based on the four games that he's going to miss, he's going to lose 56 carries, which would put him at 174 and ending around running back 37, which is exactly where Derrick Henry finished last year. But yeah, Mark Ingram's my bust based on that. I'm fading him. If he's like falling back, especially with like a Julian Edelman type of suspension, it's the same amount of time. Yeah. And he's going 2 rounds later. It just doesn't make sense.
See, here's where – so I agree with you on that. Based off the ADP, 100% a 4th rounder, late 4th, early 5th, ridiculous for marketing because you don't even have a solidified starting roster at that point. Now, if you go running back with your first 2 picks and then your next 3 picks are receivers and or tight end, I think take Mark Ingram, who's going to be a flex for you later on in the season. Okay. But now you're talking about maybe a 7th, maybe 8th round pick. I think the 4th, let's just round up and say the 5th round pick, right? Because he's 4.12. A 5th round pick for Mark Ingram is way, way too high, especially when you could get Burkhead, Deion Lewis, 2 running backs that could help you in PPR and in your league. Why would you take those? Why would you take Ingram with a 4-game suspension over those 2 guys? It doesn't make sense. Matt, love that take. Lau, what about you? What about a bust player? And before you go wild right now, respect this man, all right? Who's your bust for based off the ADP?
First, before I love this. I am fading this man so hard right now at where he's going, but I would love to hear what he has to say about it.
Are you fading him more than Kamara?
Oh God, they both are so gross to me.
Yeah, me too.
So again, this is a hot take that people who aren't in the fantasy every day probably won't like too much, but Kareem Hunt, bro, he was extremely inconsistent last year, and where he's ranked right now with a new quarterback, while he's not running well during the preseason, he kind of tailed off at the end of last year. He is ranked way too high, in my opinion. Last year he was running back. He was a running back 7. He's going about 7th or 8th running back now. I'm sorry. I can't see him having a better year than Melvin Gordon. If Dalvin Cook stay's healthy, I can't see him having a better year than Dalvin Cook. I think Christian McCaffrey puts up a really good year. I just can't say because of the inconsistencies and having a brand new quarterback who was having some accuracy problems, even on the short throws. It's tough for me to justify a late first rounder or early second rounder on Kareem Hunt. I can't do it, and that's why I think at where he's at an ADP, I can't take him.
Yeah, you know what's funny? The way you feel about Hunt is exactly how I feel about Kamara. Like, it's hard to take that kind of rookie running back, so early in the draft, and then God knows what's going to happen. And for you to say that, I'm glad you did. I don't agree with you, to be honest. I think you could still take him later on in the first round and still suffice. But that's just my thoughts on it. Matt, do you have anything to say about the Kareem Hunt take?
On the Kamara thing, at least you have somebody by the name of Breezes Juice throwing to him. Someone who is a tried and true quarterback.
I'm gonna get into some Breeze talk, bro.
You can, but
don't jump the gun.
You can't deny that Drew Brees will put the ball where he needs to put it because he's only been doing it accurately for about 12 years, 15 years.
All right, so we gave you some studs and duds at their ADP. I think it's game time, fellas. I'm kind of stoked about this. This is Matt's first time on the podcast. This is Matt's first time playing a game. Let's play this game that we like to call, quote unquote, Justin's Feels. So I'm gonna give you guys a statement. Fans already know the game. I'm gonna give you guys a statement. You have to either say you agree with me or disagree with me, or think. Well, actually, no. You have to say whether I believe it or really don't believe it. If I don't believe it, if you think I don't believe it, and you argue in the sense that I may sway that way, you get a point. If you argue and say that I do believe it, and you argue for me, you also get a point. So, are you guys ready for this? Matt, are you excited? I think you're gonna end up taking this dub away from these Jets fans over here.
I hope so. I feel pretty dumb after spending so much time with you to not get some of these right.
So basically, all right. So here's the first statement. And the first one up on this list, we're going to go in order. We're going to go Lyle, Matt, and Nick. First statement on this. Ready? And these are all fantasy football related. Eli Manning will finish with more fantasy points than Drew Brees this season. Lyle?
Well, I know what you think, but what you think is wrong. Drew Brees is going to end up with more points simply because he's a better quarterback. I'm sorry. He's much more accurate. He puts up more TDs. I don't care that OBJ is back. Saquon Barkley is going to be eating plays, run after run after run after run after run. Honestly, anybody who says Eli Manning just wants to just nestle up into Eli Manning's chest tonight just for him to pat you on the head to tell you everything's going to be all right. It's just preposterous that anybody could think Drew Brees will score less points than Eli Manning.
Matt?
So I'll play devil's advocate, and I will say I'm on board with that because I feel like as Brees is getting older, they're trying to take the ball further and further out of his hands. I feel like Eli could have a Brees-ish season from last year where he finally has healthy weapons, healthy line, and a guy like a playmaker like Barkley who can take a screen pass 60, 70 yards for a touchdown like we saw Kamara do multiple times last year. So I am all for this take. I will say he won't beat him by much, but Eli, you're going to outscore Brees this year.
Nick, do you have anything else to say? I mean, I think Matt takes the cake here. Going once.
I think he's in shock.
Going twice. Okay, so by default, Matt, you 100% win this. And here's why. I think Drew Brees is dropping out the top 12. And I think Eli Manning is going to slip into the top 15. Eli Manning is not going top 12. 100% he's not finishing top 12. But when you said, now, Lyle had a very good argument to start off with. But when you said that Barkley is going to be Kamara for Eli this year, what Kamara was for Breeze last year, that's what took it. Because that's exactly what I see it as being. I think Barkley's going to take 2-3 passes back to the house for Breeze. For Eli, in the same way that Kamara did for Breeze. And therefore, you get a point. Nick, La, you both don't get a point. Matt is up 1-0.
I have so much to say to you and about this hot take, but I'm gonna
have more.
I'm gonna save the anger.
I got more. I'm sweating right now. I got more coming. Second statement, and let's try to Breeze through these. The number one running back this year, Matt, you going first on this one, by the way. The number one running back this year in fantasy football will not be Gurley, David Johnson, Zeke, or Le'Veon Bell.
I strongly disagree. I feel like I agree that it's not Gurley just because we haven't had a repeat running back one in years. I think it's going to be Zeke because that offense is going to run strictly through him. And I know that we've got some scares with the offensive line questions, with Frederick's illness, Martin's injury. And yeah, La'el Collins have an issue. Like, there are questions there, but talent shines through. And I feel like even if he's not running between the tackles, they're going to get him more involved in the passing game, and he's still going to get his red zone goal line touches. He's going to get in the end zone double-digit amount of times this year because they're going to have to give it to somebody, and they've lost Witten and Dez, who were both their red zone targets. Zeke's going to finish.
Lau?
I'm going to have to play devil's advocate here. I have to say that no four of them will be the number one running back, and here's why. With the Rams, they're going to be spreading that ball to every single individual. It's going to be going all over the place. I don't think Gurley gets enough touches to be number one. David Johnson, again, he's a wild card to me at this point. Not that he's not going to be good. I think he's just going to – I just don't know. Basically, I'm looking at two guys right now, and two guys that you're going to laugh at me for. Dalvin Cook and Kamara, because Kamara's going to get all the touches that Ingram isn't. And Dalvin Cook, he was explosive until his knee got destroyed. But we've seen players his age, we've seen players that young come back from worse. I think those are two candidates to top the big four running backs. And that's all. Yeah, timed out. What's up?
Nick, you hear us? Nick. Nico.
I think he had transferred over to his phone.
I hope not, because that's pretty bad over there. Nick. Can't hear you. By the way, Lyle, you were on the verge of winning that last round until you mentioned Kamara being number one. Now you just fucked yourself.
No, I said
I'm just letting you know. Like you were kind of good. You were kind of convincing me otherwise.
I said it could be either Cook or Kamara.
That's it.
No. Because you're construing my words.
I'm not high on Cook. I'm not high on the
It could be either one.
Nick, you good? Can you hear us?
He's muted. He left.
Oh, he jumped off.
No, he left. Let me re-invite him.
You should have just gone with Fournette, man. Just say right? Fournette's going to play 16 games.
If you would have Fournette or like Melvin Gordon, you would have had it. That's it.
But I don't think Fournette has. I don't think Fournette's going to be.
If Fournette plays 16 games, he has a better, as good of a shot as anybody else.
Dude, every team's going to put 15 in the box. I want to be in the box to tackle him. Like, Jesus.
Blakey could throw the ball.
Blake's the second best running back on that team.
There's no one.
All right, I'll give Nick a few seconds.
Yeah. It's D.D. Westbrook and what is it? Who's the other guy?
Keelan Cole and Dante Moncrief, all right? The second best receiver that Andrew Luck ever threw to.
I don't want to talk about Moncrief. He's broken my heart too many times. Fuck that dude.
See if Nick can talk. Give me a second. I'm going to grab some water.
Nick, speak words continuously.
Yeah, I think my connection is really, really shitty right now. So
you're good. I can hear everything you're saying right now.
As long as I believe the issue was muting or just sound. If you mute the configs.
Yeah, just make sure when you're not talking to mute.
Let me ask you though, because it said somebody like blocked me or some shit.
Yeah, just muted you.
Are you guys good?
Kick
Yeah,
me
Nick,
out.
I had to mute you and then boot you because I couldn't unmute you. So, because your shit was going crazy, yo, in the background.
It was like
All right, anyways, all right. So, Nick,
You still hear it? No, right?
yeah, we hear you.
no,
No, we hear
Just
you.
just make sure that when you aren't speaking, you mute yourself.
Do you hear?
So,
do
Nick-
you hear the static and all the feedback
No.
now or no?
no.
It was,
A
it was
little
there.
bit. I hear a little bit. All
It
right.
was there. I turned it off.
All right, Nick. So, just to recap you real quick, we're in the second statement of
I
Justin
heard
Fields.
it.
You heard the number one running back part?
Yeah, it's gonna be like I'm about.
All right, so
All right.
ready? Once I count to 3, you just dive in and you tell me your part, and then Lau will edit everything out. Ready?
Nope.
To be honest, I don't see a running back surpassing the top 4, and I may be a little biased because I have a little man crush on this running back I'm about to mention. I'm just gonna go ahead and say Le'Veon Bell will most likely in a PPR format be the number 1 running back. His volume is there. He's a great pass catcher. They line him up in the slot. They throw it out the backfield. He has the ability to take any carry or any catch he is a part of to the house. I love this guy. I love how patient he is, and he's just Justin's currently holding off the Le'Veon Bell shirt.
Yeah.
It's a mutual love, but I just think Le'Veon Bell is just that good of a receiver. He has that much there's that much volume. He has that much upside. And the other 3 are just also very good. But anyway, that's how I feel.
Yeah. So this round is easy. First of all, anybody who actually think I believe that statement is D-U-M-B. Dumb. You dumb, bro. Sorry, Lyle. You dumb, bro.
I'm playing devil's advocate and making things interesting. But you know what's gonna be funny?
The point of the game is to win. You
Yeah.
play to win the game.
Do you know what's gonna be funny? I want you to remember this moment that if none of them are the number 1 running back, that you're gonna look dumb. I just want you to remember this
No,
moment.
no. If Kamara or Dalvin Cook is the number 1 running back, you got it. You got it. But unfortunately, Matt, Nick, you both get points right now. Matt, you have 2 points. Nick, you have 1. Lyle, you have a fat donut. We're gonna go to statement number 3 here. Nick, you're going first. The number 1 wide receiver to own for fantasy football on the Denver Broncos is Courtland Sutton. Nick?
Really high in Demaryius Thomas. I love Demaryius Thomas. I would hope that he's gonna be the number 1 receiver there. He's such a great talent. I completely disagree. Lyle, what do you think?
Basically, that is one of the boldest statements I've heard in a very long time.
It's not that bad, though.
Honestly, you have Emmanuel Sanders ahead of him, Demaryius Thomas. Honestly, I don't hate Jake Butt just for the name, but no, I'd take Demaryius Thomas or Emmanuel Sanders before I take the rookie. He is a very, very good waiver pickup to look out for because I don't think he even gets drafted in most leagues. But definitely someone to look out for. But he's Demaryius, DT, and ES get my vote.
Matt?
All right, so it's false, and the wide receiver to own is Emmanuel Sanders because he's already developed rapport with Case Keenum. This preseason, Emmanuel Sanders has ran 37 routes and received 14 of 32 Case Keenum targets. Demaryius Thomas has ran 25 routes and only received 4 of those 32 targets.
Yep.
Emmanuel Sanders is the guy to have.
Ding, ding, ding. You guys all got points here. Matt, you got 3. Nick, you got 2. Lyle, you finally got on the board, buddy. You got 1. I don't agree with that statement. I absolutely think DT or Sanders is the wide receiver to own, no matter how good Courtland Sutton's been in this preseason.
For the record, I did want to play devil's advocate.
Don't play devil's advocate unless it's the last one. Rule number 1. Statement number 4, and this is for you Patriots fans out there. Aside from Gronkowski, no positional player for the Patriots will finish top 10 at their position in fantasy football, Lyle?
Wait, you said no positional player?
No positional
So
player
we're
aside
not-
from Gronkowski.
We're not counting. Are we counting kickers? Because if we're
No,
counting
no kickers. No kickers.
Because
Wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, and
okay,
quarterbacks.
because Gostowski finishes top 10 easy, but no,
I
Wait,
shouldn't have asked
you'll
that.
say
You should have
Cody
argued
Thompson.
that point. I would have never argued against you.
no. So no, none of them finished top 10. You
So
know, Brady.
Brady doesn't finish top 10.
I don't think Brady finishes top 10. There again,
Okay.
betting against Brady is the worst idea in the world. I understand that. Being a Jets fan, it's my life. But if you look at the positional players outside of Gronk, it's always a running back by committee, and you never know who's going to get the ball. So running backs are out. Honestly, it's Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, who's out for the first 4 games.
Danny Amendola plays for the Dolphins.
Sorry, I'm thinking who am I? I don't even know
Chris
who's
Hogan.
others.
Chris Hogan.
Chris Hogan. Sorry, the other short 5'7" white guy who's going to play the slot. My bad. But this is the I think the Patriots are going to lean heavy on that run game, but I don't think the run game is going to be that good. I just don't see Brady putting up prolific numbers that put him ahead of 10 other quarterbacks.
Matt?
So yes, because Brady will be a QB1. Burkhead has the highest ceiling in that offense. I would say if Jules was playing 16 games, he's probably up there because of the lack of weapons there. But yeah, it's going to be Burkhead, and like they still produce top 12 running backs. Dion Lewis finished top 12 last year.
Yep, and he's in the split backfield.
Yeah, and he was sharing carries with Burkhead as well as losing receptions to White.
Yep.
So
Nick?
that is false.
Well, I'm assuming that your answer is probably that none of them will finish top 10. But realistically speaking, I think you can always poise Tom Brady to finish in the top 10 any given year. With Julian Edelman out, I actually have a higher ceiling and a higher floor for Chris Hogan. I think Chris Hogan, day in and day out, has been a tremendous receiver on that team. And like Matt said, with the lack of receiving there, you never know. Chris Hogan could get on that top tier receiver mark in fantasy football. If the Patriots could ever just lock down on one running back, they would be top 10 as well. But on any given year, Tom Brady will be top 10. So I say false or true, whatever it was.
Hold on.
Wow,
Justin,
you're
hold on.
blowing it today, bro. Just,
Hold on, Justin.
just take the L. Yeah, Matt.
You want to know who could be a very surprising victor of this because of the Julian Edelman suspension? James White. Watch out for him. He is so well liked by the team and the coaches. People say that he is the most cerebral player on that team outside of Tom Brady.
Oh,
So look for him.
I heard the podcast you were on last night, and I heard the love that you gave James White. I also heard the iffiness that you had between I believe it was Jay Ajayi and maybe Kenya Drake, if I'm not mistaken. So I heard the podcast. I know the James White love you have, and I'm with you on that. But back to the loser board, Lyle, you're taking another L, my man. How you gonna doubt Tom Brady not being a top 12 quarterback? That's as dumb as me not thinking Drew Brees is gonna be top 12.
As a self-respecting Jets fan, anytime I can
Shots
bash
fired.
the Patriots, I have to take that. I have to take that opportunity because when I'm right, which I will be right, then I can say I told you so. Even though they're going to be in the playoffs, we're going to be 5-11.
Right. So listen,
His takes are as bad as Meta. Like, you guys,
we're Meta the Jets Twitter guy.
Never compare with Madish Meta. I'm now physically offended.
So Lyle, you got 1 point. You're pretty much taking an L here, but hopefully you can redeem yourself with this last statement. Matt, you got 4 points here. You've undefeated so far. Nick, you got 3. You only lost by default for the first one for not answering, because technical difficulties.
I want to take Eli Manning over Breeze.
So we're gonna go ahead in this last statement here, and I think both Nick and Matt are going to go opposite ways. So let's see who wins. And you know what, Matt, being that you're our guest, I'm gonna give you the floor first. Aside from Saquon Barkley, No rookie running back will finish in the top 12. 4 running backs, that is.
Oh,
Oh.
that is true, actually. Because I think outside of Barkley, nobody is in a good enough position to really thrive enough. I think Royce Freeman has the best opportunity, but I don't believe he will.
Nick?
I am going to disagree with Matt, and I will say, this is tough because a lot of the other rookie running backs have a committee behind them. I guess the closest would be Royce
Keon Johnson would be top 12.
Yeah, okay. I guess I would say Royce Freeman has the closest opportunity. Granted, there is Devontae Booker there, but obviously they're not high in Devontae Booker if they use a third-round pick to get Freeman in the NFL draft. The guy ahead of Devontae Booker was obviously cut, which is C.J. Anderson. So I feel like they are looking for a new player to get that starting back role and get that bell cow role, which I think it would be Royce Freeman because he's just good at everything. If there is another rookie running back that has the opportunity to get that top 12, top 15 running back ranking, it probably could be Royce Freeman. I think he probably will get the most volume outside of Barkley.
Lau?
I'll make
if
this
you
really
If you want to save your breath, you could just save it.
Really quick. No, so I agree. No rookie running back will crack the top. You said top 10. There's only one rookie running back that I think had I only think there was one running back that had the chance, and that was Geis. Unfortunately, his knee got completely annihilated. So, yes, I agree. No running back will be an RB1 from this rookie class outside of Saquon.
So, Lau, you kind of redeemed yourself because you're the only one that mentioned Geis, which I think could have been the top 12 running back for fantasy football. Matt, you beat Nick. Matt, first time on the show, undefeated. You got 5 points out of 5. I do think Barkley is the only rookie running back. Nick, you did make some really good points because I do think Royce Freeman is going to be a fantasy football starter. I think he's going to be a viable starter either as your RB2 if you're running a wide receiver heavy, or your flex if you're running back heavy, because I do think he eventually takes that role away from Devontae Booker and just runs away with it. But knowing the Broncos, they'll be a little bit short-minded and a little bit dumb and not give him the role right away. So for that, he won't be top 12. But you both made good points. Matt, congratulations, man. Undefeated. First time with Justin Fields, man. Congratulations.
Fix is in. I would like an independent commission to review the results.
Like I said, I feel like I had an advantage.
Yeah, he had the advantage. I mean, the first 3 questions, he already knew what my real answer was because of previous episodes we did together. But nonetheless, speaking of rookies, right? We talked about Barkley. I mean, I think he's gonna be a top 12 running back, regardless of what you guys think. Let's talk about some rookies in general, whether it's a wide receiver or a tight end. Let's talk about some rookie breakouts for fantasy football relevancy. Matt, do you have any rookies that you think are going to be fantasy relevant for the 2018 season?
I went pretty deep with it just because, I'll save time with this. Jordan Wilkins of the Indianapolis Colts, he has the easiest road to volume, and you got the Mac injury. Hines is already off to a slow start, and he's already getting work with the ones. He got the most carries, 14, in the dress rehearsal, and he was playing 45% of the offensive snaps. Opportunity and volume matter in fantasy football.
Couldn't agree more. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. What about you, Lyle? First of all, Lyle, freak you. Okay, go ahead. You better make me proud with this guy. You better make me proud.
So. My fantasy standout is going to be Michael Gallup. He is the wide receiver drafted 3rd round by the Dallas Cowboys, and here's why. The wide receivers for the Cowboys are it's a dumpster fire. You have 90-year-old Terrence Williams. You have Cole Beasley. You have Allen Hurns, who's going to get crippled at some point in the season. Gallup is an unknown, yes, but if you look at his college stats, the dude in 2 years at Colorado State had 176 receptions, and in those 176 receptions, averaged 15.3 yards. Yes, it was the Midwestern Conference. Sure, but the dude is 6'1". He's a big guy. He's got 4.5 speed. And who else is Dak Prescott going to throw to on this team, especially when Hurts goes down with his yearly injury? Michael Gallup, again, you won't. I don't think you'll necessarily need to draft him, but he'll be a good waiver wire pick, especially when Hurts becomes a cripple.
I'll put it this way: between Witten and Dez Bryant leaving the team, there's 219 targets available. And regardless of them adding Allen Hurns, I don't think Allen Hurns is going to exceed 100 targets unless an injury does occur, which means there's 100 plus, give or take 10 targets for Michael Gallup, who can be a wide receiver 3 if you do play in 3 wide receiver leagues, or if you play in leagues that starts 2 flexes, or if you start a league in which you need the wide receivers because it's a half-point PPR, full-point PPR. So, Lyle, as much as I am mad at you for taking my pick, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Great pick right there. Nick, what about you, man? Who's your rookie breakout?
All right. Well, I already spoke about him during the Justin Fields question. Going with Royce Freeman. Obviously, there's a lot of hype around this kid, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I already gave you a couple of my feels on Royce Freeman. But he's just the guy that seems like he's running away with that starting job. I believe, he should be the starting running back over Devontae Booker, who they just doesn't seem like they're very high on. He's looking very crisp. He's running the way he ran in Oregon. He just looks good, and I just believe that he will get that starting gig, and he's going to be fantasy relevant just because that's his job. Royce Freeman.
Yeah, and like I said before, and Matt expressed some feelings on it before as well. I like Royce Freeman. I love him. If you could get him at the right ADP, that's even better. But as of right now, he's going to be no better than an RB2, a low-end RB2 and a flex play because of what the Broncos are doing to us fantasy fans. So with that said, we have rookie breakouts, right? And every year there's a player, a rookie in which people are jumping for, right? And I don't want to foreshadow, but for me, someone like Ronald Jones, right? Like, I think that's a rookie bust right there, which one of you guys are going to touch up on. But with that said, rookie busts. And these players, just because they're busts doesn't mean they're going to be bad NFL players. It just means that they're not going to be fantasy relevant, which means you're going to draft them or pick them up, and they're not going to be relevant for fantasy. So, with that said, Lyle, I'll lead you off here first because your pick makes the most sense based off what I just said. Because I think this guy is going to be a fantastic NFL player and a fantastic role player, but for fantasy-wise, he'll probably be a bust.
So this is not the year for Calvin Ridley. Again, he's 6'1", 189. He ran a 4.4. He's an effective receiver, but Matt Ryan is going to be dishing out to as long as Sarkisian isn't the worst offensive coordinator in the world again. Hopefully Julio and Sanu see more targets. Hopefully they're going to run the ball more this year with Freeman, and Ridley's going to be a 5th or a 6th option on this team. He's not going to see the targets that you need for him to be fantasy relevant. Drafting Ridley would be a mistake this year because he's not going to put the consistent points. There's going to be some games where he might not put points up at all. Again, I'm hoping I'm wrong because coming out of college, I do have high hopes for the kid. But for fantasy this year, huge risk in taking him.
Nick, what about you, man? Because this guy that you have in your list, I could see it, and I'm not disrespecting the pick. I can't argue against the pick. I understand, especially where you're drafting him, but I need to understand why this guy is going to be a bust.
All right. Well, let me define bust. Bust doesn't mean that they're not going to be good NFL players. Bust to me just means that they are not going to play at where they're being drafted. They're going to play that below, far below, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Again, I like Kerryon Johnson. I think he's going to be a very good to great running back down the line. I just don't think that this is the year for him. And let me tell you why. All right, there's too much of a backfield going on the Lions. He's going to be fighting off passing downs with Theo Riddick. He's going to be fighting for time against Amir Abdullah. They just brought in LeGarrette Blount, who again, who doesn't really fit that system, but will still be that goal line, short yardage back. And when you think about a running back, you think about touchdown production, and touchdown production is actually obviously coming in the red zone in the 5-yard line mark, which I believe that you install LeGarrette Blount in there, and he's just going to vulture a lot of touchdowns from Kerryon Johnson. I just don't believe that there's going to be a lot of volume. Like we said, volume and opportunity is what makes a great fantasy football player. There's not too much volume there for Kerryon Johnson. Maybe down the line he does get more playing time, he does get more opportunity, but as far as fantasy and as far as where he's being drafted, I don't believe that Kerryon Johnson is worth a 6th-round pick at the moment.
So I have the button here, and I actually kind of disagree with you. So and here's where I agree with you, in the point that the Lions haven't had a 100-yard rusher in the last 2 seasons of football. And I don't think that has to do with the talent, because they had Abdullah, right? They had Zach Zenner, who's like doing like lawyer work right now. If you haven't seen on Instagram, NFL posted up a tweet of him like finishing like his lawyer career, degree or medical degree or whatever the case may be. They had Theo Riddick, right? They had 2 running backs who were capable of running for 100 yards. I think it has to go more than beyond the talent they had there. But at the same time, they drafted someone in Kerryon Johnson who played in the toughest division of football in the SEC. I'm going to read you some stats. 285 attempts, 1,391 yards. He averaged 4.9 yards a carry, had 18 rushing touchdowns, 24 receptions for 2 touchdowns. Those are amazing stats right there, and they got him in the 3rd round. I think the Lions finally got the correct back to complement Matthew Stafford, a guy who's going to just chug it through the yardage. He's not going to break it for 60 yards, but he's not going to get caught in the backfield for 2. I think this is a guy in which, if you're drafting him as your RB3, if you're drafting him as your first bench player, then so be it. It's good. That's fine. I think he's end up going to be a bust, like you say, Nick, if you're drafting him as your RB2, if you're drafting him as your RB1. 100% agree with that. But I think, and I'm sure you could agree with me, Nick, as well, if you're drafting him as your RB3 or your RB4 as a late round sleeper, but an early round sleeper, in which whether he makes or breaks your team is not going to affect you. I'm sure you could agree with that, Nick, that if you're drafting him and your team's already set, you're fine. But if you're drafting him to make your team, then he's most likely going to be a bust. And speaking of busts, rookie studs, I want to get into my favorite segment. And this is something that I've truly liked, because I just finished coming off a draft in CBS. It's a 12-man league. It's a PPR league. I had the 4th pick. I took David Johnson. I ended up taking Keenan Allen with my 2nd pick. Mike Evans with my 3rd pick. And then Zach Ertz with my 4th pick. I did not plan to take any of those 3 players. The reason why I did was because they fell to me. The value where I was drafting was better to take them than jumping for a running back in which I didn't need. Right? So with that said, I want to know your guys' favorite value pick. A guy in which their ADP, the value in which you're getting them is going to be worth it. Whether they live up to their QB1 or RB1 or RB2 or QB2, regardless of that. Matt, I want you to take us away right here, because your value pick is exactly what I'm trying to say right now.
My value pick is Duke Johnson, and that is because Duke Johnson finished RB11 last year in an 0-16 offense. He is the Chris Thompson, I guess you could say, of the Browns. He had 93 targets last year. It led the entire Browns team, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, and he's going to be seeing a lot of slot work in this Todd Haley offense, and has already asked to be converted to a wide receiver. In Pro Football Focus, put him at 4th in yards per route at 2.05, and his receiving grade was also 4th at 89.4. he is a great receiver. That's where his money is being made. And they obviously like him because they just paid him. So they're going to use him no matter what this year.
I love that because I think someone like I was just explaining to Nick about Kieran Johnson being the rookie buzz. If you're drafting drafting Duke Johnson as your RB3 or in the 8th round, you're drafting him as your RB4 at that point. Well, hopefully, unless you go QB early and tight end early. That's an awesome pick right there. And that's a value pick. That's what I mean. Like some guy that you're getting in their round that their value is worth that pick. And Nick, I'm going to swing it to you here because as much as I don't agree with your pick, I understand it because at the end of the day, it's also a value pick. If you think about it, it's a value pick. Nick, who's your value pick based off the ADP?
Of course, it's a value pick and of course you disagree with it because you like to take quarterback in the first 5 rounds. But anyway, my value pick is I give an insult. All right, no, but my value pick, I went with Philip Rivers. I think Philip Rivers right now is currently ranked as the 15th quarterback, and he's been, I think, getting drafted in the 9th or 10th round. I just want to state that Philip Rivers last year finished in the top 5 in pass attempts with 575. Yards passing with 4,515 and touchdowns with 28. Now, this is a guy who is going again in the 9th or 10th round, and he is putting up top 5 numbers not after year, but you get my point. Now, look at the weapons around Philip Rivers. You have Melvin Gordon behind him, Keenan Allen, Tyrell Williams, and now let's add a healthy Mike Williams, who has had an amazing preseason so far. I also want to make a little side note. Tyrell Williams, I'm not exactly sure where he's ranked. He's also a value pick of mine. But I think Philip Rivers, where he's being drafted, he can – and I want to make a bold take that I think he will be a top 5 or 7 quarterback in fantasy this year, where he's being drafted, tremendous value. And I just like Philip Rivers, hands down.
No, and here's where I agree with you. So I'm looking at the average draft picks of quarterbacks, and Philip Rivers is the 14th one taken off the board. You have Matt Ryan, Garoppolo taken ahead of him, and those are 2 guys you could probably argue the other way. And with that said, if you're taking Rivers in the 9th round, like you said, which is slightly, just a little bit slightly ahead of his ADP. In the 9th round, with 8 picks in, you have at least 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and maybe a quarterback already. To be honest, to me, like you have your lineup set with a backup at each position except the tight end. Which, if you have a backup tight end at that point, if it's not a tight end heavy league, then you dumb, bro. Like from us at J&J Sports, like you dumb, bro. If you had 2 tight ends at that point, if it's not a tight end heavy league, so. I think that's a great pick right there, Nick. Especially in the 9th round where your team is solidified. You have your starters at running back, you have your starters at receiver, you have a good tight end, and then you're taking your quarterback in the 9th round at 9.12, which is basically, if you round up to 10th round, awesome. What about your value fantasy pick at their ADP?
My value fantasy pick is none other than Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He recently moved to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who now have, 1.5 receivers and a huge running back. But one thing Blake Bortles could use, and hopefully his coaches are telling him to use, is a security blanket. And Austin Seferian-Jenkins, check that. I lied. That's for later. So I'm going to cut that out.
All right, ready? Lyle. As I had to butt you in. Lyle, what about you? What is your value pick at their current ADP?
My value pick is none other than the great, ancient Jordy Nelson.
Boo.
Here's why. Jordy Nelson is good at doing one thing really, really, really well. Being open in the 8-9 yard area, catching the ball, and falling down. When you have Derek Carr, who needs that safety blanket, Jordy Nelson is now there because he's been doing it for Aaron Rodgers for years. Jordy Nelson knows how to get open quickly and knows how to catch the ball. If he can stay healthy, I think Jordy Nelson is going to be huge value, especially where he's being drafted, because he's going to get so many looks. I rank him ahead of right now. Pierre Garçon's in front of him. Devin Funches. Like, there's just players ahead of him that have no business being there. That's like Michael Crabtree, who's basically replacing Corey Davis. I think Jordan Nelson's ahead of all these receivers. I think he's going to be an excellent value if you can get him in the right rounds.
Well, he'll be a wide receiver 4, right, at the worst. So not bad, right? It's not a bad pick. And what you just said, Lyle, reminds me of my favorite word in fantasy football, and that's the word sleeper. And we're going to get into that right now. And Matt, I'm going to hit you off real quick right away. Matt, I want you to tell me a sleeper. I want you to tell me a player who is being slept on, in which people are not really considering drafting them a little bit early, or players or people that are not really drafting them at all. Give me a sleeper pick, Matt.
So Tyler Lockett for the Seattle Seahawks. He's currently going in the 12th.
Love it.
You got to follow the money in fantasy.
You got to follow the money.
Baldwin will not be healthy this entire year. He's already said he's not even 100% going into the week of preparation for week 1. And he is going to be the guy to own and beat league winners in some cases. And I will take familiarity in an offense over a newcomer like Brandon Marshall, who I do feel is going to get a lot of those red zone looks. But he's going to outplay Marshall, and he's going to outplay Darboh.
So this is basically Percy Harvin 2.0.
Like, better. He's already like Percy Harvin wasn't as big as Lockett, and Lockett has already had success in that offense when healthy. That's the only thing that is really going to hold him back is his health. But in the 12th round, you're not really worried about that. If you can get somebody who could potentially step into a wide receiver 1 role in an offense in the 12th, that's not a sleeper. That's being in a coma.
Absolutely. And I agree with that, because when you see that contract be signed, you could think one or two things, right? One, the Seahawks, you dumb. 2, you see something in Lockett that we don't, which makes us believe that he's going to be what we think he should have been years ago. So I love that take right there. Lyle, what about you? I feel like you're being a little bit biased here because you're taking a former Jets player. So go ahead.
My sleeper pick is the one and only Austin Seferian-Jenkins, and here's why. You lose Hearns, you lost A-Rob last year, but you lose A-Rob. Julius Thomas, when he was there, was never healthy. What Blake Bortles needs, and what he's really never had, is that safety check-down guy. And Austin Seferian-Jenkins is a very athletic receiver. The man can also block, so he'll be there on every down. He's not just there on passing downs. And I think where he's ranked, I think he's a steal, because when it comes to tight ends, there's a huge drop-off in points and production after the first few. So I think his production is going to be a lot higher than where we think he is and where he's ranked. And I also think he could eke into the top 10 conversation by the end of the season. Yes, that means I'm putting him over David Njoku, OJ Howard. I definitely put him over Jordan Reed, because Jordan Reed can't stay on the field for more than 9 games in the season. That's why I got ASJ as my sleeper pick.
One second. Apparently, you do not know who Matt is. The minute the name Jordan Reed is brought up, there's like a light bulb that just goes up in Matt's head that says, quote unquote, I must defend Jordan Reed. So be careful when you mention that name.
No, he can defend him when he's on the field, but when he's not consistently on the field. Jordan Reed is an exceptional talent and is a top 5 tight end when on the field. But when he's not on the field. Like, you can't.
Wait. Save that for my bold fantasy take, my bold fantasy prediction. Jordan Reed is my.
There you go. All right. Hey, perfect then. Good job. Now, who's yours? Who's your sleeper? Because your sleeper is actually very intriguing. Like, with it, I would like to add more on to what you're going to say, but go ahead, take it away.
All right, so my fantasy football sleeper is wide receiver Anthony Miller from the Chicago Bears. He is going in the 12th round currently, and he is going to be the starting slot receiver for the Bears. He's a freak athlete, and just a side note, he was a hurling champion in college, so it just goes to show his athleticism. Allen Robinson is probably the favorite to get most of the targets in Chicago. But if you look at last year when Mitchell Trubisky, I think, started the 12 games that he did, his favorite target was over the middle to his slot receiver, Kendall Wright. And I believe that Anthony Miller will step into that role. He's going to be Mitchell Trubisky's favorite target. And he's just shown how efficient he is when throwing to the slot receiver. And I think Anthony Miller has the opportunity and will get the volume to be a tremendous asset in your fantasy football team.
I love that.
Go ahead, Edwin.
I love that, and I'll tell you one reason why. And it's really hard for a fantasy analyst, for quote unquote experts like us who do podcasts or just anybody in general, to judge the situation that Allen Robinson is in. I played football before, right? And when you go from one offense to another as a running back, it's so easy. Like, you just gotta just adjust to the running schemes, the blocking schemes, and the adjustments and the pulls from between the guards and the tackles. When you're playing receiver, it's not only the scheme, it's not only the type of offense you're playing, but it's the quarterback who's throwing you the ball. Nobody's thrown the ball to Allen Robinson other than Blake Bortles. And as bad as Blake Bortles is, it's hard to adjust to a good quarterback. And Mitchell Trubisky, who I'm high on this year, maybe not as a quarterback one, someone you're going to pick up and make him start every game this season, but someone who you'll pick up as your backup. But there's no harder position to adjust from one team to another than receiver. And for Allen Robinson to go from the Jaguars, who barely passed the ball, even when he did receive 14 touchdowns, it's still hard for him to adjust to a Chicago Bears team that is going to be very run heavy and defensive minded. And on top of that, he's fighting 2 ACL injuries back-to-back years. I'm not saying that A-Rob is going to be a bust. I think from weeks 10 to 17, he'll end up being a solid starter in those weeks. But if you're drafting A-Rob at his ADP, he's going to be a buzz. Therefore, the sleeper that Nick just mentioned, Anthony Miller, take a shot at him. Even better, take a shot at Trey Burton. Trey Burton has 86 yards with a touchdown on 4 catches against with Trubisky. Like, that's the type of player you want. You want Anthony Miller, you want Trey Burton on the Chicago Bears offense. Try to stay away from A-Rob. Nick, love that pick. Now, we're going to jump into players. Now, every year, last year for me was Kareem Hunt. I drafted him in the 3rd round. I jumped right away to take him. Every year you have that guy. You don't care if he's going in the 7th, in the 9th, in the 11th round. You jump for him. You go ahead, you take him 2-3 rounds ahead of where he's supposed to go. Lyle, who's that one guy? And again, you disappoint me. But give me that guy in which you're going to jump a round or 2 earlier just to get him on your team because you know that he'll fulfill that ADP.
Let me tell you a story about him. Let me tell you a redemption story about a man who didn't play football for 18 months, about a man who he's fighting his mental health demons, he's fighting his addiction, and he has come back to the Cleveland Browns, Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon is going to be
who?
Josh Gordon. Let me be 100% clear. Josh Gordon, if he did what he did back in the day on some form of substance, whether it be alcohol, marijuana, and now he's back clean and looking ripped as hell, the league better watch out. The league better take notice right now. I'm putting everyone on notice right now. Josh Gordon is going to tear up this league.
So Josh Gordon's ADP right now is currently in the 4th round, which means you would take him in the 3rd.
Yes.
So you would take him over T.Y. Hilton.
Yes.
Okay, folks, you heard it here. Breakout player of the year,
I'm loving
T.Y.
this.
Hilton. Gordon over Hilton. So, AKA Gordon, breakout player of the year. Now,
so the difference between that is Gordon, in my opinion, Gordon should be on everyone's radar.
you know what? How about this? How about this? We're going to ask a professional. Matt, T.Y. Hilton or Josh Gordon? Who are you taking, regardless of who you already have on your team?
Oh, man.
Ooh, hey, he's actually thinking about this.
No, I think he's just placating my obsession with Josh Gordon. I appreciate that.
No, I'm actually really high on Josh Gordon this year.
Let's go.
Like, I like him a lot, and I give Nate a ton of crap all the time. Justin's seen it.
Yeah, I do the same thing because Josh Gordon's the man.
Because I love Josh Gordon's ceiling. Like, I'm still like everybody else living off of 2013.
And his ceiling is top 5.
Exactly. Like, he's one of the most athletically and like gifted and talented receivers in the league. And he just is going through things, and he just isn't able to stay on the field. But I would probably still go TY just for the certainty.
Absolutely. And I agree with you there because with Andrew Luck back, I think it's a no-brainer.
Right.
Nick, what about you, man? What's one player in the draft? Like, you don't care what round they're going in, you don't care what position it is. That one player that you're willing to jump a round or two earlier to get them just to have them on your team.
All right. Well, this is kind of tough. I'm not really as far as jumping for a player. I'm usually a guy that likes to go running back in the first 2 rounds, and after my first running back, the second I would probably end up jumping for, which I gave high praise to earlier, would be Joe Mixon. I really like Joe Mixon this year, and there's just so much I can say about Joe Mixon, which I've already said, and I think Joe Mixon has, like I said, first running back 1 potential, and you have to find players like that who are going to play above their ADP, and I think Joe Mixon is one of them. I guess I go with Joe Mixon.
So is that going to affect your draft strategy? So I don't know about you, but I just got my text from Kenny. I got the 11th pick in our yearly league this year, and you got the 10th, which means you're probably going to go running back or receiver, but you're most likely going to go either running back receiver or receiver running back your first 2 picks. So if Joe Mixon's there in the 3rd round, you're taking him regardless if you're going running back, or you're taking him if you go running back receiver, or vice versa.
So you just tell me that makes me not want to tell you any more of my fantasy secrets.
No, I mean I pick right after you in the 1st round. I pick right before you in the 2nd round. What I pick is not going to affect who you take in the 3rd round.
Well, now that I didn't know that I was the 10th pick, being 10th pick, I probably won't end up going Joe Mixon. There's probably gonna be another running back.
I mean, if he falls to you in the 3rd round at the 10th pick, that's a steal.
There's no way he's falling in the 3rd round at the 10th pick.
So that was my point.
If I was a little bit shifted over, Joe Mixon would be the person I jumped on.
Yeah. So Matt, being our guest, I want you to take the time here to express your feelings on a guy in which, regardless of their ADP, and I've stressed this enough already, forget the ADP, forget which round they're going in, forget who's on your team as is. Who's the one guy you're willing to jump for in drafts to have on your team? And if you freaking say a Patriots player, I'm booting you from this chat right now.
So, actually, my pick is somebody who I feel like will most likely be like the Jarvis Landry of last season this year.
Nice.
And I feel like the guy I'm willing to kind of take maybe a round early, or depending on where I'm at in the draft order, if I don't think he'll come back to me, Jamison Crowder.
Love it.
I love Jamison Crowder this year. I feel like we're gonna get that 2013 to 2016 Alex Smith again, where he's just gonna try to be as safe and secure and kind of get through the rest of his career. And there's no safer player on that team than Jamison Crowder.
I love that because I'm actually very high on Crowder, and as high as I am on, I'll just give you some names out there: Emmanuel Sanders, Randall Cobb, and Kenny Stills, who we mentioned earlier in this podcast.
And Josh
I have
Gordon.
Crowder. First of all right, if Josh Gordon is in the same ranking as Crowder, stop it.
You should be really high on Josh Gordon in general.
I have Crowder, Randall Cobb, Robbie Anderson, Emmanuel Sanders, all in the same boat. I have them all in the same tier. Basically, very, very, very low end wide receiver 2s, but high end wide receiver 3s. And if you look at Crowder, like, I love Crowder so much that I would actually take him over Stills. Because
Absolutely.
you're gonna get the receptions, right? You may not get the long touchdowns, right? But you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about Stills getting a 16-point game when Crowder is getting you 10 to 12 every game. And that's where I love Crowder. Like, if you give me Crowder on my team as my wide receiver 3, where I'm solidified 3 backs and maybe a quarterback or a tight end or whatever the case may be, give me Crowder, especially for the fact that, fun fact, 70% of Alex Smith's passes in the last 3 years have gone to, guess who? The slot receiver. I had that stat written out, waiting to talk about James Crowder.
It's on a huge blackboard right behind him for those who are listening.
It's on my document. Like, I'm looking right at it. If you're on YouTube Live, I'm like looking right at it. Like, I love that. And
picture of Josh Gordon.
Yeah, and I'm gonna transition here. So, I'm gonna give a player that I like. I basically, been trying to piggyback on you guys here. One guy that I would love to jump on, no matter if it's the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. Anything beyond that is just a value pick. But between those 3 rounds, for me, is Kirky Kirk. Give me Kirk Cousins. I mean, if I could get Kirk Cousins in the 6th round where I already have 3 running backs and 2 wide receivers, I love it. Like, I did my rankings before, and over here at J&J Talk Sports, we tried to do a consensus rankings. Unfortunately, we couldn't come to an agreement and post that up, so I posted up mine individually. And as you guys see, I have Kirk Cousins number 3, right after Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. To have Kirk Cousins number 3, you're basically saying he's going to improve what he did last year with his 29 touchdowns at Washington to this year. And whether he increases that number of touchdowns is irrelevant because I think he throws less picks. He's throwing to receivers like Diggs, Thielen, and a tight end that I don't think is better than Rudolph. That I don't think is better than Reed, but at least is going to play more games than him, in which, you're throwing less passes for interceptions, not because of your brains or your skill set, but because you have receivers like Diggs, Thielen, and Rudolph, right? Who are going to fight.
Don't forget about Dalvin Cook.
They're going to fight for the ball, right? Like, before you join a Dachshund and Jamison Crowder, no knock on Jamison Crowder, just give him props, or Terrell Pryor, or Chris Thompson for half the year, and then when he got out, you were doing to Rob Kelly and Samaje Perine. Those guys aren't going to fight for your passes. Stephon Diggs, Thielen, Rudolph, you give them a jump ball, guarantee you they're going to knock down more passes than interceptions thrown. And because of that, not only do I think Cousins throws more touchdowns than he did last year, I think he throws less interceptions. I think he throws for 30-plus touchdowns for the second time in his career. I think the defense is going to give him – defense for the Vikings is going to be so good that they're going to give him an opportunity to throw more touchdowns in the second half. And I think Kirk Cousins is the guy that I'm willing to reach in the 6th or 7th round, maybe even the 5th round, because I think he's going to be a lock-in quarterback 5. Like, he's going to be in the top 5 range. And at the end of the day, if you want to win a championship, you have to take these risks. That's why I had this segment here, right? Matt, you took your guy. Nick, you took your guy. Lau, unfortunately, you took Josh Gordon, and good luck with that. But you take your
talk smack again about Josh Gordon. I will come through that screen, sir.
You take your guy when you can, and at the end of the day, that helps you, right? I mean, I took Kareem Hunt in the 3rd round last year, but everybody thought that he was like a 6th, 7th round pick before the Spencer Ware injury. But at the end of the day, you take your guys that you feel comfortable with. That was the point of this segment. Who are you willing to jump for? I'm willing to jump for Kirk. Everybody else is willing to jump for somebody else. Listen to our takes, and you guys will win some fantasy championships. Now, the next segment here isn't about jumping for someone. It's not about your studs. It's not about your duds. It's not about your rookie breakouts. It's not about your rookie, sleepers or duds on that. It's about a bold prediction. A bold prediction is not something that you're going to say out of your ASS, right? You're not going to say it out of your ASS just because you want to get some followers on Twitter. You're saying it because you believe it. You're saying it because there's some proof to it. You're saying it because in your heart, you honestly believe it, but you put the quote-unquote bold fantasy prediction on it so that if you are wrong, you don't look like, an idiot. So, Lyle, being that you have the most bold predictions, regardless of fantasy or not, I'm going to give you the floor first. So, I want us, the 4 of us, Nick, Lau, my 2 co-hosts, Matt, my guest on the podcast. I want us all to really go into these bold predictions right here because I believe that we all believe that these all will really happen right now. So, Lau, go ahead.
All right. So, of course, I'm going to come from the Jets standpoint. My bold prediction for the day is going to be Quincy Enunwa is going to be a top 15 wide receiver this season. Am I crazy? No. Here's why. Let me tell you some things about Mr. Quincy Enunwa for those of you who don't know. Quincy Enunwa is 6'2", 225 pounds. He's a big dude. He is physical, and he will fight for every ball. Something a lot of people – that's something everyone knows about Quincy Enunwa. Something people don't know about Quincy Enunwa. The dude runs a 4.4. The dude has speed. The dude can burn linebackers. The dudes can burn, slower safeties, corners. He's big, he's fast, and he's imposing. But I think the biggest reason why Quincy Enunwa can be a top 15 receiver is because of the Jets' new offensive coordinator, Jeremy Bates. For those of you who don't know, Jeremy Bates derives himself from the old school Denver offense when they had Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, when they had that team with John Elway. Because of the Jets' lack of lack of pass catching tight ends, because they have like 15,000 tight ends. None of them are any good at athletic catches, or they're sufficient in what the Jets need them for. But Quincy Enunwa was going to act as a Shannon Sharp-like tight end H-back in the Jeremy Bates offense. And we all know how effective Shannon Sharp was in his career. Am I saying he's going to put up as prolific numbers as Shannon Sharp? Most likely not, but he will put up 80, 90 catches. He will put up over 1,000 yards, and he'll have, I think, double-digit tight ends because as the Shannon Sharp type player, a lot of the second reads are going to Quincy Enunwa. A lot of balls are going to be thrown his way. He's going to see upwards of 130, 140 targets at minimum. Quincy Enunwa is, again, the one question about him is not his neck. It's healed. He's good. He's so physical that he is a little bit more injury risk than a lot of other receivers because a lot of other receivers don't block as hard, don't play as hard. But Quincy Enunwa, if healthy, will be a top 15 receiver, and he's definitely someone that would be a huge value pick. And it's very bold because nobody takes the Jets offense seriously ever.
Love it. And I'll tell you this much. For a redraft, it's very risky to draft Enunwa coming out your draft and holding him until he finally breaks out, right? If you're gonna wait and save your waiver wire until week 3 or week 4 when he does break out and then pick him up, so be it. If you're in a dynasty league and you happen to be listening to us, if you happen to be one of our 500 to 700 listeners that we average on a daily basis, and you're listening to this and you play in dynasty football, Anundwa is someone to not sleep on. Lau, I'm very happy that you brought it up. Despite being a Jets fan, I told you before, I think Anundwa is going to be the best receiver on the Jets roster. So,
he's definitely going to get the most targets. He's definitely going to be the most consistent.
Yeah.
I even think like a later pick, because I think he puts up fantasy-wise, puts up 10, 11 points consistently, but he'll have those breakout games where he gets those TDs. But he's going to be a safe, consistent, you know what you're going to get from him. I think that's why he's huge.
And for me, where it comes down to is that people actually compare, like, first of all, no knock on Anundwa, but Sterling Shepard is a better receiver than him. And him and Sterling Shepard are on the same boat. Now, Matt, I know you're a Patriots fan, so you focus on the Patriots team, and then you live in Seattle, so this is Seattle talk. But in New York City, Anundwa and Shepard are always in the same conversation. For Anundwa to be in that same conversation as Shepard, I love Anundwa for that sense. Now, Matt, you have anything to say about that?
I don't know enough about Anundwa to really have an opinion, but I don't see how he could be on the same level as Shepard.
No.
Well,
I don't.
You'll find out soon.
In New York, they are talked about a lot in the same sentences, even though they are completely different players.
Right.
Shepard is much better than Anundwa.
No. It's not about
on their levels.
It's not even I'm not even talking about talent-wise. I'm talking about they're just different receivers for their teams. Anundwa's just going to see a boatload of targets. Yes, Shepard is more talented, but when we're talking about fantasy, sometimes talent doesn't matter. It matters about production, and Anundwa is going to put out top 15 production. You can have the most talented person on your team, but if he doesn't put up the production you need, what does it matter for fantasy?
If Shepard's on the Jets, he's outproducing Anundwa. But the fact that he's playing behind a receiver like OBJ and a tight end like Ingram, it's hard for him to put that production out there.
Well, it's Ingram that screws Shepard. Because Ingram would be
exactly, and
Ingram is the Anundwa.
And Anundwa he's not as talented or as skilled as Shepard. No one's saying that, but
he works hard.
Anundwa he's how people say, hey, Ingram is a wide receiver in the tight end's body. Oh, no, I'm sorry, he's a tight end, but in a wide receiver's body. No, Anundwa is reversed. He's a wide receiver. He's a wide receiver
in a tight end's body, but he's still got that 4.4 speed, which is ridiculous.
So when you think of that fantasy football perspective, Anundwa has the more physicality and the more opportunity than Shepard, which is why I say when it comes to New York City, Jets fans like to overhype everything. So Anundwa could finish with 40 catches and Shepard could finish with 70. But if no one has one more touchdown catch than Shepard, then so be it. He's better.
See, you're the one making this adversarial, sir. I'm just saying Anundwa's going to put up top 15 wide receiver production this year. That's my hot take. You want to go with the adversarial, Justin?
Well, I just want to cover something though real quick. So you think he's going to outperform guys like Mike Evans, Demaryius Thomas, Brandon Cooks, the Detroit receivers, because that's who's in that 12 to 18 range.
No, Mike Evans for sure. Mike Evans for sure. I think Anundwa could outproduce.
But that's why this is a bold take, because when you eyeball it, it doesn't seem like Anundwa should be there. But if you actually look into how the Jets are going to play versus all these other receivers, Anundwa's going to consistently see a lot of balls. He's going to get a lot of touches. He definitely has the potential to get into that top 15 range over those big names that you just mentioned, such as Mike Evans, because he's going to be consistently producing, whereas Mike Evans will have some games where he just disappears.
Or just catches a touchdown in the red zone.
I was gonna say I'd probably agree with you if McCown was the quarterback.
I mean, again,
That's
these are bold takes.
Very good point. Now,
I mean, but Anu was going to be the safety blanket for Darnold. That's the other thing. But again, Sam Darnold has 3 years before I kick him out of town.
Well, Nick, what about you? What's your bold take? So we already heard from one Jets fan. I really hope your bold take isn't about the Jets either.
No, I tried to shy away from the Jets this whole fantasy podcast. My bold take is actually a tight end that we all love, but we just haven't been able to see a lot of recently. It's Jordan Reed.
Ooh,
Yeah, I believe Jordan Reed healthy, or even at least playing a minimum of 12 to 14 games, can post top 3 tight end numbers. And if you look at the stats going back a couple of years, yeah, top 3, Justin, I said it.
Now, if you look 12 to 14 games and then top 3, I'm just like, if we would have said like top 6, we would have been good.
No, but look at his number. When he in 2015, when he played 14 games, he had 87 catches on 114 targets for 952 yards and 11 touchdowns. That's in 14 games. That's ridiculous numbers. And if you look at Alex Smith, who will be his quarterback this year, and what Alex Smith has been doing with Travis Kelce in KC, Travis Kelce has been averaging about 80 catches the last 3 years and about 1,000 yards each year with about 5 to 6 touchdowns each year. Now, we see how Alex Smith loves his tight ends, and I do believe if Jordan Reed stays healthy, he will be Alex Smith's favorite target and will be a top 3 tight end this year in fantasy.
Oh, yo, Matt, that's all. Matt, that's all you, man. You could comment on that.
You want to know
that's your boy right there.
But like the best part about his take right there that didn't even like land really on like the best part of his production for fantasy is the last 2 seasons he's been healthy, 2016 and 2015, he has been tops in fantasy points per game at the position with 14.1. Yes, yeah. He's averaged 14.1 points per game in 2016 and then 17.4 per game in 2015, beating Gronk, beating Jimmy, beating Gates, who's been red zone fiend. Like the talent that Jordan Reed has is what you hope Evan Ingram will do.
Yo, Nick, you preaching to the choir right now because Matt is just like Matt's about to like take his shirt off.
Well, he didn't
start like preaching.
He didn't disagree with me. I appreciate that he loves Jordan Reed as much as I do. I'm not disagreeing with the man.
I think he's infatuated with him.
Yeah, I think Jordan Reed is his Josh Gordon.
Josh, I was gonna say that.
But no, I completely agree, and I think having Alex Smith, I think Matt brought it up earlier, where he said Alex Smith's going to revert back to that. I'm going to throw 5 yards every pass and not make any turnovers and be that safe, conservative quarterback. Jordan Reed and Jamison Crowder are the perfect receivers for that because they love their slants, they love their 5-yard, button hooks. And the good thing about Jordan Reed though is the athleticism to break one of those quick 5-yard passes. And again, if Jordan Reed stays healthy, as I said earlier, he's top 3, but is he going to stay healthy?
Yeah. So before we get into Matt's bold take, remember the segment we literally just did right before this on that guy that you're willing to jump for him regardless of their ADP or their ranking?
Word.
Matt secretly wants to take like Jordan Reed in like the 2nd round. Just don't tell anybody.
He's really like my 2-3 turn pick.
That's his 2-3 turn, like he just had. Matt, speaking of that, give us a bold take for fantasy next year, man.
So I've been riding this ever since he was put on this team, and just what they're doing with this roster, I am so excited. But it is Tyrod Taylor will be You got to say it right. It's T-U-H.
Yeah, if you watch Hard Knocks, it's Tyrod, not
right.
Tyrod.
It's to God.
To God.
So I think he is going to be top 10. He's going to be a top 10 quarterback this year. He has the weapons. He's going to help the running game there. he in the last 3 seasons, and we got to remember where he's been a starter at with Buffalo. He's finished as the 16th in 2015, his first year, in 14 games. In 2016, he was 8th. And then in last year, for some mistakenly being benched against the Chargers, cost him a game, and he finished 16th as well. And we know that Buffalo roster was awful last year. And for him to still finish that close to possibly being even a low-end one, it's just amazing. And now when you have, Carlos Hyde, Duke Johnson, Josh Gordon, Landry, Callaway, who I'm really excited to watch in the regular season, I don't see a way or a scenario other than injury that really doesn't make him a top 10. Because if he stays healthy, the Browns are going to fight for playoff position as a wild card, and they are going to not be forced to hand the ball to Bake, who's not ready anyways.
So I love this take right here because
Samesies.
It transitions into my bold take, but I go ahead now, Lau.
So I just want to pull up again, as a Jets fan, I've watched a lot of Tyrod.
Tyrod.
I've watched a lot of Tyrod, but let me tell you the most amazing thing about Tyrod. Let me just throw 3 numbers out there: 6, 6, and 4. Those are how many interceptions he had the last 3 seasons. The dude takes care of the ball. He knows how to place the ball. And again, the Buffalo Bills receivers have been trash since Stevie Johnson left. Trash.
Throwback.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's the last receiver I can remember was like, oh snap, that dude's gonna tear my team apart. That's the last receiver I had any fear.
Disrespectful to Kelvin Benjamin.
He just started.
Yeah, he just started. Again, I don't fear him. The thing is, if they in Buffalo, they didn't let him throw. They just gave LaShawn McCoy 80,000 touches a game. If they let Tyrod Taylor open up.
Tyrod.
I said Tyrod Taylor open up. I absolutely agree with this because, again, when you have Josh Gordon, and you didn't even mention Matt, you didn't even mention Njoku, who's a huge target for him, especially in the red zone. I don't see how he doesn't end up top 10 because this team is built for Tyrod to make plays. I'm super excited for it.
And I'm very excited to transition into my bold prediction. So I have 2 here for you guys, and the Browns is one of them. And before I get to that, I want to make really quick work of this next one. I've been saying, and Matt could vouch for me for this. So can you, Nick and Lyle. I mean, I've been saying this in our group chat. Matt, I've been saying this on every podcast we've been on. Since January, since the ending of the season, since before draft time started, I've been saying that Drew Brees is not going to be a top 12 quarterback this year. I've been saying it. He has an ADP of QB, 6, 7, 8. Regardless of that, I'm not drafting Drew Brees unless I'm in the 10th or 11th round and he's sitting there. Drew Brees scored 262 points last year, right? That was enough for 9th most. Dak Prescott finished with the 10th most with 2 points less, and he played 6 games without Ezekiel Elliott, which, in my opinion, I think the majority opinion hurt him. Then you had guys like Big Ben and Jared Goff, who finished with less than 6 points less than Drew Brees, and they only played 15 games last year. Why did they play 15 games last year? Because the 16th game didn't matter to them. So if you take that into consideration, Zeke plays those 6 games. Big Ben, Goff played that extra game. Brees is not finishing better than a QB 12. Then you add into consideration Watson, Rodgers, and Luck. all missed last year. Those three quarterbacks right there. Watson was a top 2 quarterback, top 3 quarterback last year before his injury. So you have to think he's going to finish in the top 12. Luck, top 12 quarterback, not just top 12 quarterback. Where is Brees finishing in the top 12 last year if those injuries never happened? He's not. He finished with 262 points last year. You know what the last quarterback top 12 to finish with 262 points was? Anybody? Anybody want to take a guess what year the last time that happened?
I believe
Only
it was
once.
1969. Joe Namath.
Okay, 100% incorrect because Joe Namath threw twice as many interceptions as he did touchdowns. No shots fired at Jets fans. I apologize. But no, 2013 was the last time a quarterback scored 262 points or less and finished as a top 12 quarterback. And that quarterback was Nick Foles, who he replaced his starter as a starter to perform for the rest of the season. Drew Brees finishing not less than top 12. But Matt, Lyle, this is for you. Nick, you didn't pick anybody from the Browns, but this is also for you. Here's my real bold take. Now, I've been hyping up Drew Brees for months now, right? And I think all of Twitter is against me on this. On the Drew Brees take, at least. But on this next take, very, very bold. This team allowed 10 points, 19 points, 0 points, and 17 points in their 4 preseason games. 10, 19, 0, and 17. Their second year best defensive player on their team. In his second year, he has 4 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 hits on the quarterback, and 1 safety. And in one game, based off that average, it accumulates to 8 tackles, 3 sacks, 5 hits on the quarterbacks, and still 1 sack, which is still respectable. I am making a bold prediction that the Cleveland Browns defense will finish as a top 12 defense for fantasy football next year. I don't care that they play the Steelers twice a year. I care that they play Andy Dalton twice a year. I care that they play Joe Flacco twice a year or rookie developing quarterback Lamar Jackson twice a year. Now, their schedule is not favorable. Their season starts off pretty bad with game 1 home against the Steelers and game 2 away at the Saints. But as I feel about Drew Brees, maybe they could make something happen on the defensive end. But game 3, sorry, Nick and Lyle, they're home against the Jets. That's an easy dub right there.
On a short week though. That's a Thursday night game.
And on a short week, absolutely right. Then they play the Raiders. Then they play the Ravens. Those are 3 weeks in a row that their defense could put in work. And it's not about their defense as a whole. It's about their units. And I want to go into that. The Browns have made their defense into dangerous playmakers on every single level. Front 7, front 4, back 3, and then the DBs. Let's start with the defensive backs. They invested in a 4th overall pick in Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward, who was the best cornerback coming into the draft, right? And Denzel Ward is not only the undisputed best cornerback coming into the draft, but he's had a great preseason. Now he's dealing with a shoulder injury. He should be ready for week 1. He's good. I'm not worried about that. But in addition to that secondary, Jabril Peppers, who was a bust his first year, in my opinion, with the hype, has developed into a very good number 2 safety. And Demarius Randall, in which they traded DeShone Kizer for to the Packers, for Demarius Randall, who was a good safety his rookie year. He was a good safety his rookie year, and he's going to line up with Demarius Randall or with Jabril Peppers. So you have two young safeties there to go with Denzel Ward. Let's go to the second unit, right? In which we have Matt, your boy, Jamie Collins, in which the Patriots traded Jamie Collins to the Browns for. Matt, tell me something about Jamie Collins that I don't know.
He freelances a lot of his style of play. He shoots gaps. He doesn't play disciplined,
which is good.
That's bad. That's awful. That's not a good thing.
I'm gonna get to it.
But he is very athletic and can run with pretty much every tight end in the league.
Perfect. Nick.
If he remembers his assignments.
Nick. If you're there, Nick, I have a question for you. What does a Sam backer, what's his main responsibility as a Sam backer?
You talking about stop there? I want to go tight end.
Thank you. A Sam backer's main responsibility is to cover the tight end, and if there's no tight end, you cover the running back. Guess what position they just moved Jamie Collins to this year? Sam backer, because they have a guy who they think in Christian Kirkley, who, if you're watching Hard Knocks, has seemed to be the real deal at middle linebacker. So there's no need for Jamie Collins there no more. You move Jamie Collins to the Sam linebacker. He could guard the tight end. If the tight end ain't going out, he's locking it on that running back. That's what a Sam backer is supposed to do. A Sam backer is the most aggressive linebacker on your team, quote unquote, just like Matt just said. Very, very aggressive. And that's what Jamie Collins is going to do. He's going to succeed more with the Browns than he did with the Patriots. Kirkley is going to succeed more with this is a guy who has 144 combined tackles the last 2 seasons with an average of 3 sacks. Now, the 3 sacks is not promising, but it is promising when I talk about this next guy, and that's Myles Garrett. My dark horse to win the Defensive Player of the Year this year in 2018, Myles Garrett, the guy who was a top overall pick last year, the guy who was rated higher than Bradley Chubb coming into this year, the guy who is going to beast so much for this Brown defense. He had 4 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hits, and 1 safety in less than 2 quarters played when you combine the time that he played on the field. Browns defense, my bold take for 2018. Browns defense, top 12 defense. I don't even care if they make it by just half a point.
Yikes!
Be finished top 12.
Yikes! I don't, Justin. I hate to burst your bubble, but yikes, bro! Unless Myles Garrett can get to the quarterback in under a second, that secondary is going to be chewed up.
Oh, he's been doing that all preseason.
But like preseason, they don't show their blocking schemes. They don't show. They're going to direct 8 people over to Myles Garrett.
So holding the starting Eagles offense, holding the Super Bowl chance to 0 points, and getting a safety on them, regardless of Wentz or Foles is playing quarterback, that's not enough to be happy about.
It's something to build upon. But to say that this Browns defense, as it stands, is a top fantasy defense, is preposterous. B, they're not even a top 15 defense in the league because their secondary, as much as you want to hype up your boy Jabril and Denzel Ward, who's 5'0", their secondary is going to be ripped to shreds all season unless they can get to the quarterback on a 4-man rush within 3 seconds. I appreciate your take, and I want to buy into that Browns hype, that Browns defense hype, but that defense has a ways to go. Defense is going to struggle.
So I actually had these questions lined up for Matt. But you know what, Lyle, since you want to call me out, I'm going to ask you. Broncos or Browns defense next year?
Me?
Both of us, I think.
Both of you. La, you can go first. Just give me an answer.
I'm gonna do Broncos.
Matt?
I'll go Browns just because I know how good Greg Williams can get his defense to play, and they were like a top 10 run defense already last year.
Oh.
That they were. Yeah, but I talked. Did I not say passing? Did I not say their secondary would be torn up?
No. Lyle, play the game fairly. Next question. Houston Texans defense in fantasy football or Browns defense, Lyle?
Fantasy-wise, it'd go to the Browns.
Okay. Matt?
I'll go Texans because the only reason that secondary was torn up last year was injuries, and they still have Clowney and Watt.
Got it. Next
and
one.
Wiley.
Next one. Matt, I'll let you go first because this is your team. New England Patriots defense or Browns defense next year for fantasy purposes?
Oh, geez. Probably Browns just because I know the way the defense plays, and it's a lot of yardage.
Lyle?
Yeah, Browns.
Okay.
Yep, sorry.
Nothing. You don't say anything. Last one. Carolina Panthers or Browns defense for fantasy purposes, Lyle?
Browns.
Okay.
This one's Browns because of the opponents that they play.
Okay.
Like the NFC South will put up points.
You both went 3 for 4 with the Browns. Those 4 teams finished in the top 12 of defense last year.
Yeah, but those teams also lost players. They lost effectiveness.
Who did the Panthers lose on defense?
Well, the Charles Johnson or something like that. They're one of their main sack getters.
The Patriots lost a cornerback in which they didn't feel confident starting in the Super Bowl. So I'm not viewing that as with a grain of salt. The Broncos lost Talib, but they're still viewed as a top 12 defense. My point is, regardless if they fit, the Browns could be ranked number 15th going to week 17 as the best defense. If they return 2 pick sixes week 17 and they finish top 12, that's what I mean. They're a defense in which don't be afraid to start because Myles Garrett is going to finish as the defensive player of the year. That's my bold take. Does anybody else have anything to say about what we talked about on today's podcast?
Jabril Peppers is garbage.
All right, that's fine.
No, like the thing I can't get past the Browns secondary because again, Ward, I can't get past it. And Jabril Peppers is like he is sized between a linebacker and a safety and can't do either of them well. So it's really frustrating. And I want to root for the Browns. And I want you to be right, but I can't do it.
So you have it, folks. You heard it here first. Lyle preaches for Josh Gordon, but doesn't defend their defense. What a fake Browns fan, aka what a fake Jets fan. But that's it, Lyle. That's it. You're done talking. So
well, you're going to make baseless accusations, sir.
Speaking of accusations, you and Nick both owe me a Long Island iced tea because I did say that Darnold was going to start a meaningful game this year, and with the Bridgewater trade, that basically books the bet. Matt, what do you think that?
Todd Bowles came out today and says we have not decided on a starting quarterback. Reports were false. We do not know who's starting this week, but we do, but we don't.
Matt, who's starting week 1 for the Jets?
Oh, they're going to make the bad decision, and they're going to put Darnold in. It should be McCown.
I win my bet.
Not yet. We got to see it happen first.
Matt, 2 months ago, I said Darnold will start a meaningful game this season. I bet these two gentlemen a drink that it would happen, and it's happening. But that's it for J&J Talk Sports Podcast. I do apologize if you guys have stayed this long, but you know what? It was worth it. It was a fun podcast. I had fun. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter and Instagram at J&J Talk Sports. Make sure you guys do subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play at J&J Talk Sports. Make sure you email us at jnjtalksports@gmail.com for any questions, concerns, comments, or future topics you would like for us to discuss that has happened in the past.
We give out free
Yes.
tickets and shirts and gear.
Yes. Yesterday on what was it, August 29th, we gave free Yankee tickets away. Were they nosebleeds? Yes, they were. But did we give 3 tickets away out to fans? Yes, we did. That's just what we do. We show some love back to our fans. Lyle, where can our lovely fans follow you on Twitter?
They can follow me on Twitter at Lyles Style. I will be live tweeting Josh Gordon's every move from here on out. So be hype. Just kidding. But yeah, Lyles Style. Nick, where can they find you, sir?
They can find me on both Instagram and Twitter at Stefanoun. That's STEPHANOUN. And Matt, where can they find you?
They can find me at Kegler Matt, KOEGLER Matt. And thank you guys for having me on.
Matt, from
It was a
me,
pleasure.
Lyle, from me, Lyle, and Nick, man, we really appreciate it. That was some great insight there, and we appreciate having a Patriots fan on here. Like,
Do we appreciate that?
It's coming.
for your
It's
damn
coming.
self.
It's coming like a regular right now. Like,
Well, Lee was a
between him
Patriots
and
fan.
Lee.
Yeah, oh my God.
I mean,
Yeah, it's
you
a bit of a regular
you
Matt.
should
We
really
appreciate-
appreciate like the greatness being on here for you.
Exactly. So you should appreciate Eli Manning.
I mean, we've got
Between
what,
times.
like, just in between us and our fandoms, we've got what, 7 rings?
7 rings. See,
Oh, okay, cool,
See?
cool.
there you go. And how many do the Jets have? Oh, 1 in 1960.
The most important
Sorry, guys.
one. The most important Super Bowl of all time.
Hey,
Before players were good.
yeah. Hey, guys, listen.
Fight
NFL preview is coming out on Tuesday. We're recording that on Monday. Make sure you guys stay tuned for that. We're gonna
Yeah,
pick our
buddy.
division winners, conference winners, Super Bowl takes, Super Bowl winners, MVPs for the league, offensive player of the years, defensive player of the years. We have a special guest on that podcast as well, and Lee Schefter, who works for Bleacher Report. Very good guy there. So very excited for that. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at J&J Talk Sports, Instagram as well at J&J Talk Sports. Make sure you follow me at EasyPalizzi_21. That's Justin Skywalker Palizzi. And from everybody here at J&J Talk Sports, we are out. Later.